What you're looking at is quite possibly one of the more influential early personal computers. The Tandy 1000 series of computers, of which this being a Tandy 1000 TX, is interesting because it became known as one of the more popular personal computer clones for the home market, but in reality it was not an IBM PC clone. It was actually an IBM PC Junior clone. We'll get into that here in a minute. We'll have this wonderfully poor retrospective video of the Tandy 1000 because I'm sure that I'm going to be missing something. When you think of Tandy, normally you're thinking of the TRS-80 when it comes down to home computers. Of course, the TRS-80 was introduced in 1977 and, among other things, ran the CP/M operating system. It was a CP/M clone. But when IBM introduced the PC in 1981, that was really what people wanted, was they wanted IBM PCs running MS-DOS, as opposed to the old TRS-80 and the various other CP/M home computers that ran CP/M. So Tandy, in response to this, introduced what they called the Tandy 2000, which ran MS-DOS but was not a PC compatible, and therefore, because it could not run 80 to 90% of the software that was on the market for MS-DOS, quickly fell out of favor. So the response was to introduce both the Tandy 1200 and the Tandy 1000. The Tandy 1200 was intended to be the big IBM-compatible business machine, whereas the Tandy 1000 was intended for the home market. It was released in November of 1984, and as mentioned, it is not a direct clone of the IBM PC. Rather, it shares most of its design architecture with the PC Junior, which was the failed home computer from IBM. Now, of course, that's not to say that the Tandy 1000 did not take after the IBM PC in any way. It used the same 8088 processor. It got rid of the PC Junior's cumbersome and not very well received cartridge slots in favor of standard floppy drives. The original Tandy 1000 had a single 5¼ inch 360K drive. We'll get into this one in a minute. The original had 3 expansion slots. This, as you can see, has got 5, but it's the same basic idea. And it was compatible with all the existing TRS-80 equipment as well, the TRS-80 printers, TRS-80 joysticks. But it used the same graphics mode from the PC Junior, that is 16 colors at once. I don't have one to show you. I've tried to get one and I've struck out 3 times trying to do so. But the Tandy 1000, instead of the awful infrared chiclet-style keyboard that the PC Junior had a much more standard wired keyboard. Now this unit, of course, is a Tandy 1000 TX, which introduces quite a bit of new features, the most notable of which is that the Tandy 1000 TX actually uses a 286 processor, clocked at 8 MHz, or you could switch it into the slow, non-turbo speed of 4.77 MHz to retain compatibility with older IBM PC software that depended upon the system clock speed as a timing reference. If you ever wondered what that turbo switch does on computers, now you know. But the interesting thing about the Tandy 1000 TX is that even though it has a 286 processor, it is not a PC AT compatible system. It is still a PC XT system. So even though it's got the 16-bit processor, and it does have a 16-bit data path for the memory, it's 8-bit wide elsewhere. It would not be too far out of line to think about this, for those of you that are familiar with the 386SX, as a 286SX, effectively, in that it has the full speed internally, but it's got slower speeds externally. Now, The 386SX had a smaller address bus where this Tandy 1000 does not, so it could address additional memory. You could have up to 768 kilobytes of RAM in here, but you can't use that as system memory. The additional 128 megabytes beyond 640K is used for video. Unfortunately, nothing ever really took advantage of that. As standard, the Tandy 1000 TX, I believe, came with a 3.5-inch 720K floppy drive, which is what this is. It's just double density. You can see where it would be, kind of, if there were a second hole there, but that second hole being missing is a telltale sign that this is a 720K diskette. This one also has a 5.25-inch. I don't know if these shipped with this, and I'm also not 100% sure if this is a 360K or if this is a high-density 1.2 meg. I've never actually looked at that, and one of the things about these machines that is kind of a massive pain is dealing with these drive cages. We'll see that once I pop the cover here. See here, taking a look at the bottom here. This is basically the same as the original, with one addition in terms of this volume control, and maybe even this headphone output jack right here, which is just a standard 3.5mm jack. The Tandy 1000 TX, like the SX and the original Tandy 1000 before it, used a Texas Instruments SN76489 audio chip, which offered 3 voices, excellent, I would say, audio output for things like games and other things that home computers would generally be used for. Of course, it also features the Tandy Video, which was roughly CGA compatible, but allowed you to have more than just the standard 4 colors on the screen at any one given time. You could have all 16 colors, just like the PC Junior. The irony in all of this is the failure of the PC Junior and the success of the Tandy 1000 meant that the formerly PC Junior Video and PC Junior Sound ended up being known as Tandy Video and Tandy Sound. But otherwise, this is basically the same as the Tandy 1000. You've got 2 joystick ports there, which are backwards compatible, I believe, with most TRS-80 joysticks. You got the keyboard port, more than that in a second, and a reset switch. For those of you that are familiar with modern computers, you'll probably wonder where the power switch is. This, of course, is from a time when the power switch was built into the power supply and directly switched line voltage. That's right here. This isn't nearly as nice as the big red switch that the IBMs had. Flipping the machine around here, we can see Tandy 1000 TX personal computer. Model number 25-1600. There's a serial number. There's a cooling fan here. You can see 5 expansion slots. We'll go ahead and we'll pop the covers so that I don't really have to poke in there and show you everything, but these are 8-bit slots. The original Tandy 1000 only had 3 slots. I believe the SX only had 3 slots as well, but the TX upped that to 5. This is kind of interesting. You won't see this on a lot of other non-home computers. The video and audio ports. This is a standard composite video output that you could hook up to a monitor or to a TV, and standard RCA monophonic output. You could also hook this up to an RF modulator to a TV that way if that was how you needed to hook up to your TV. There's your standard DB9 output. Like I said, the Tandy Video was backwards compatible with CGA, and I believe it was also backwards compatible with Hercules monographics as well. This is new for the Tandy 1000 TX, a serial port. The original Tandy 1000 did not have a serial port. Instead, what it had right here was a light pen connector, because it was assumed that most people would actually use internal modems plugged into one of the expansion slots. And a mouse, believe it or not, was not really a thing back then, so there really wasn't a whole lot of a need for a serial port, because, like I said, there weren't a whole lot of mice, wasn't a need for a mouse. Internal modems were certainly a thing and were probably preferred because of the vastly higher bandwidth, and all the printers hooked up via this card edge connector right here, which is roughly compatible with parallel, but it was designed to be used with TRS-80 printers. This assembly is very simple. There's 2 screws right there, and then the entire shell pops off the computer. Very interesting to note that you might not actually be able to tell just by looking at it. The Tandy 1000's outer shell is entirely made out of plastic. Kind of odd back in the day, because most IBM PC compatibles had a metal case. That's not to say there isn't a fair amount of metal shielding material. In fact, you really can't see much of anything in this computer right off the bat. And here you can see the ease of disassembly being basically nil. It's easy enough to get this main metal shield off. There's just 1 screw here, and then 1 screw here at the back, and then this piece carefully lifts up and out to reveal the rest of the computer. Almost. Now this is actually a difference in design from the original Tandy 1000, but as you can see, or at least as it looks, you can actually access the screws for the floppy drive here. The original 1000 did not allow you to do that. And rather interestingly, there's only 1 screw. Now I wonder if there's more on the other side. Yes. You can see there's these here. What you used to have to do, and this actually lends credence to the fact that this is not actually original to this machine, because these are the original screws, these are very not. Here you can see I've added some some slot covers there. Those were difficult to get in there. I hope I didn't punch through the board. Because, yeah, that wasn't easy. So, it's designed to do that. There are the, because normally cards would actually sit. You might be able to just barely see the spaces where slots would sit in there. So you are designed to be able to do that. It's just that was rather difficult. Anyway, you can see the 5 expansion slots there, which are 8-bit only. This here was left over. I believe this would have been from a like an XTCF that would have been installed in here at one point. This was given to me by somebody, and obviously they took their peripherals out. In any event, this does not look like a standard power supply, and the fan is actually part of the power supply. On previous models it was not. Yeah, that doesn't look standard to me. So I guess if that ever fails, then we might run into problems, but I'm sure it wouldn't be too difficult to find some way to adapt that based on the color codes that are coming off of this. There's probably not too much different from this over a PC power supply. You could probably just modify some kind of AT power supply to work with this. I'm not sure where the processor is. I've got to be honest with you, I don't really see it. There's a Chips and Technologies chip right there, but that's not a 286. There's an 8 MHz 287 math coprocessor right there. 8259. That's a Motorola chip. I highly doubt that they would have made a 286. Tandy ROM chips. Another Motorola chip right there. A Tandy labeled chip there. That's probably the video controller if I had to guess. At least, well, and also certainly based on its proximity to that crystal right there. That is probably the clock crystal for the video output. It could be that big chip that's down there, but I'm not sure. It could also be underneath this giant cage, and I'm not taking that out just for the privilege of checking. Here's the system memory. Definitely different for those of us that are used to dual inline memory modules, or even single inline memory modules. But yeah, this is 640K with an additional 128K, it looks like right there. Most of these chips are 41257s, and I believe that those, I can't read those NEC chips up there, but it's possible that that's only parity memory. Not 100% sure. There's an awful lot of capacitors here. Probably some tantalums that could explode. That's certainly okay. There's some dip switches for adjusting various portions of system setup. The last thing I'm going to mention is this keyboard connector, which we can now see in the flesh. You can see that that is not a 5-pin DIN connection. Though it looks like you could plug a 5-pin DIN keyboard in there, I certainly wouldn't try it, because this is a proprietary Tandy 8-pin connection, probably roughly compatible with the TRS-80, but it is not compatible with the PC-XT or the PC-AT. Fortunately, there does exist out there, and I bought this one from a company called Texelec, which you might be able to see there. This is a Tandy 1000 to PS2 adapter, which goes from the Tandy 1000's keyboard output to this. Of course, there's one problem with this particular adapter. The cable that they shipped me doesn't actually fit in there, and you can see that I had to chew quite a bit of that out in order to get that to actually plug into that connector there. And you can see the speaker. It's bigger than anything that IBM was putting in any of their computers. Also, for the budding computer enthusiasts that might be missing screws in their Tandy 1000, these are not standard 632 thread PC screws. They look like it, but they're actually bigger. I think these are actually 832 thread. These are the ones that go here. And of course the screws for the PC cards, the ISA cards back there, are also different. Just something to watch out for. Before I finish this off, if it seemed like it was a little bit rushed towards the end, it was. I am fighting the blinking battery light of doom. So, yeah, try to get this done before the battery on the camera dies. I have 1 minute left on this camera, and I just realized I forgot to plug the keyboard in. Wow, that is impressively difficult to plug in. I'm hoping that this is going to work. Like I said, I've only got about a minute to do this. So let's turn on the monitor. Listen to the sweep circuit in that. And turn on the computer. Well, that's not quite working. I think I know why. Come back here. Check our video cable. Nope. So, I wonder if my monitor failed. Well, I don't know what's going on. I guess my CGA monitor is dead. What a piece of crap. I was able to use that to at least ascertain that the computer was working, but it really didn't work well with that either, because that's a monochrome monitor, not a CGA one, and the standards are not totally compatible. So now I don't know what I'm going to do, because that was supposed to work. Okay, well, unfortunately, this is what I'm going to have to use, because this is the only thing that I've got that actually has a composite input. I got a whole bunch of TVs over here, but they're all RF. And I suppose I could use a modulator, but I don't have a modulator sitting around either. So, kind of sucks, but at least it does get the point across. And it's almost readable. Here you can see 768K. Hear the floppy there. Almost readable. DOS 3.3. Asking for time and date. DOS 3.3. I probably don't have a whole lot of time left on this camera. I can't tell what any of that is. So, quick disc check. Working fine. So, I'm going to have to fix that CGA monitor, or get a different one, because, as you can see, that one looks like it's definitely seen better days. But, at least we have a basic overview, and at some point there'll probably be a much more in-depth video once I've actually got things like Tandy DeskMate and other pieces of software that I would like to use to demonstrate this thing, but for now, that's pretty much it. So, thanks for watching this really crappy video about the Tandy 1000 TX. And if you've got any comments, feel free to leave them below.